It's been really exciting and a lot of support, a lot of recognition, a lot of really good conversations in the North Central area. I just want to make one comment about the campaign, and that is the question of other candidates raising the issue of racism consistently. I think it's outrageous, it's disgraceful, and when you're in those communities, the thing that really concerns people is not the immigration, it is the cost of living, it's the lack of housing, it's the disgraceful treatment of their children who need special needs, etc., by the government. And for other candidates to point the finger at foreigners as being the problem rather than the government is the cheapest trick that you can pull in an election, but no doubt they will do it repeatedly. It doesn't serve anybody's interest, it divides working class people, and we're going to be the voice that will unite them and give representation to the concerns that they have on all the issues that I've mentioned. So to start off, Richard Boyd Barrett, who needs no introduction, is going to talk about the bigger picture in terms of the election and the call from us to vote left and transfer left. Thanks, Richard. I give, I think, 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm delighted to be here supporting and endorsing Eoghan Ó Ceannabháin's candidacy for the Dublin Central by-election. In our view, this by-election, the 2 by-elections, are a vital opportunity to land a blow on a Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael government that, despite record budget surpluses, have failed to deliver on the most basic things for working people, for young people, for people with disabilities and those with special needs. They have failed disastrously to offer a future for many, many young people, leading to huge numbers of them simply leaving the country. Many young people just choosing to leave the country because they see no possibility of ever being able to own their own house, afford accommodation, or having a cost of living that can actually be sustainable for them. So I think that there's no doubt that this by-election is going to be dominated by the issue of cost of living and housing. And Eoghan has a fantastic record of campaigning on issues like housing, currently leading a campaign around the council rents, or one of the key participants in a campaign around opposing the rise in council rents, which is of course part of a more general affordability and rent hike environment that we are living in that is exacerbating an already disastrous housing crisis. And we think it's long past time that we need to break the cycle of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and see a left government in this country. Now, that's not in prospect over a couple of by-elections, but we do think this is an important chance for the left to land a blow on Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and to set the scene for finally breaking the cycle of more than 100 years of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael in this country come the next general election. And therefore we want to reiterate a call that people before profit have consistently made and in these by-elections is for a united left, strong transfer pact, and that the left parties call openly for a left alternative and for a vote left, transfer left in this election, because we think it is exactly what's needed. The problem with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael is they prioritise big business, profit, vulture funds, landlords over the needs of working people. The only sort of politics that can provide an answer to that is the politics of the left. We think obviously Eoghan is the best candidate in that regard, but we are also very clear in calling for left votes. So that we ensure that it is a left alternative to Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael that gets elected. Final point I just want to make is that I think on a personal level Eoghan would be an absolutely brilliant representative for Dublin Central. He's a real activist, which is what is needed. He's led a very successful fight to stop the cobblestone being destroyed by developers, leading fights for cultural and artistic spaces, campaigning on issues like housing and mental health, and he's exactly the sort of candidate we need to represent ordinary people in Dublin Central.
Thanks very much, Richard. And our next speaker is Farah Parvazi, and as I said, Farah is going to speak about the needs and the demands of young people, which Eoghan is also representing in the constituency, and Farah is, as I said, an Iranian national, but an Irish woman too, and a proud feminist.
Thanks, Breed. So thanks everybody for being here today to launch Eoghan's campaign. As Richard said, we're here not today just for Eoghan, but also to send a strong message to the government, because we believe that Dublin can and should be a fairer and safer place for everybody who calls it home. It's clear at the moment that Dublin isn't working for us. It's not working for young people, it's not working for women, it's not working for migrants, and it's not working for members of the LGBTQIA plus community. And people are really angry, and they have a right to be, because women in Dublin are still not safe. Gender-based violence is on the rise. Survivors are being turned away from refuges. And in the middle of a housing crisis, people are being forced to stay in really dangerous situations because there's no escape, and their only option is to keep a roof over their heads. So we have a whole generation of young people at the moment as well who are being force-fed misogyny online through the manosphere, the really toxic manosphere, and they're being taught that women are the problem, that abuse is normal, and that it's basically acceptable to carry on this way. And at the same time, Eoghan and I recently met with a member of Belong To, or someone who's working in Belong To, and she was talking to us about the needs of the non-binary and trans community living in Dublin, and how they're being scapegoated, they're being denied healthcare, they're being denied dignity, and they're basically being used as a distraction to divide us instead of us working together as a community. So it's clear that this system is failing. It's putting profit before people, it's consistently underfunding services, and it's leaving women, young people and marginalised community to deal with the consequences. And what is our current government then doing in response to this? They're rejecting bills, they're delaying action, and they're turning a blind eye while these crises deepen. As Breed said, I am Iranian, and an example of this is that the government won't even acknowledge the atrocities that are happening in Iran, and won't call it out, and so are complicit in it at the moment. So that's why this by-election matters, because electing Eoghan isn't just sending another politician into the Dáil. It's about electing an activist. He's a socialist, he's a proud feminist, and he's going to consistently fight for change, for properly funded refuges, for housing that gets people out of danger, and for a city that pushes back consistently against misogyny, racism and transphobia.
I think we have that point, yeah. I mean, nothing good for
You're not in charge of the press conference.
Sorry, I'm chairing it, and that is being rude. Leave her speak.
It's ridiculous.
Go ahead, Farah.
And most importantly, it's about electing someone who will fight with us, because real change doesn't come from the top down. It comes from the bottom up, from solidarity, organising, and from refusing to accept things as they are. We know that we deserve better, and we know that now is the time that we're going to fight for it. And with Eoghan and the Dáil, that fight gets a lot stronger.
Thanks, Farah. Thanks very much. Despite the rude interruption, you did a good job there. And Paul Murphy is the Director of Elections, needs no introduction, but he has a bit to say about the issues around the elections and publicity and stuff.
Thanks a lot, Breed. First thing to say is, I think in this campaign we are applying some of the lessons of the successful Catherine Connolly presidential election, in terms of this being a people-powered campaign aimed at recruiting, mobilising, organising volunteers and turning them out to talk to thousands and thousands of ordinary people. And this is proving very, very successful. We have over 200 volunteers for our campaign in Dublin Central. It means we've been able to already canvass the majority of doors in Dublin Central. We will canvass every door. Many doors we will canvass twice between now and 2 weeks' time, leaving us a final week to return to people who have indicated an interest in our campaign. And the campaign started while others were getting their posters up. We started with a gig at the Button Factory where there was over 350 people there. Our fundraising has been done by small donations of ordinary people. There's online donations on our website, eoc.ie, which we've currently, this morning we went over €5,000. We're on track to keep going. That money will be used to pay for extra small posters which will be going up at the weekend. The first period of our election campaign, in advance of the election proper, was actually spent not knocking on doors asking people to vote for Eoghan, but instead Eoghan working to organise council tenants against this horrific increase in council rents. We organised 4 different community meetings, organised a protest. There's banners up. If you go to any of the flats across Dublin City, you'll see banners that have been donated by Eoghan and the campaign to local communities to say, drop the rent hikes. So it's very much based on that people power approach, and we're very confident that our campaign is doing very, very well. The results we're getting back in terms of our canvassing returns indicate that Eoghan is a very, very credible candidate. Therefore, we were very disappointed when we got notice on Friday from RTE that Eoghan is to be excluded from all of the RTE Dublin Central by-election debates. They are clearly, when you kind of read between the lines, they are basing their criteria overwhelmingly on the results of the last general election in terms of party and candidates. But I mean, any objective look, and I invite people to go back and look at the previous election results, will tell you, based on the last election, there are 9 viable candidates in this race. There were 9 candidates or parties who exceeded 4% in the last general election. One of those viable candidates, Eoghan, is being excluded from all of the debates. Every one of the other 8 gets at least one debate. We think it's outrageous that this decision has been made to exclude Eoghan. We don't see any objective criteria for it. If you look at the last results, so Eoghan was less than 0.4% behind the 8th person who is included, but the gap between Eoghan and the next candidate who is running and is also not included in debates, Eoghan got more than twice as many votes as that person. So there clearly is a line of about 4% where above which candidates are clearly credible, viable candidates in the election, and for RTE to effectively arbitrarily set the line between Eoghan and the next candidate, Malachy Steenson, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to us. It also goes against the requirements that they set to us in terms of representing diversity of political views that are standing.
Did you take legal advice on it?
I was talking to the lawyers earlier this morning. We're discussing with lawyers at the moment in terms of what action we can take. What we hope, though, and we're engaged in correspondence with RTE, is that RTE will see sense on this and will include Eoghan. There's many, many ways that Eoghan can be included in one of the 3 debates that they've organised. I mean, one debate has already taken place, so one of the 2 debates that are coming, to ensure that there is a diversity of political views. They're including the most rightward candidate in the debates. They should also include the socialist left candidate, the only candidate in the race, who is saying that he's against coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and wants to send a message to the other parties about the necessity of a left government. So there's no debate scheduled for this week by RTE. They're the following weeks. So we're seeking to meet with RTE and asking them to reverse this decision, and a petition has been launched. I think about 500 people have signed so far. It's being circulated and so on. We're encouraging people to sign and to call on RTE to change their mind. It's not for RTE to decide who gets to win this race. It's for the people of Dublin Central, and RTE should be facilitating a debate, an exchange of views, facilitating people of Dublin Central hearing the different viable candidates who are putting themselves forward in this race. You don't have to support Eoghan, you don't have to be planning to vote number 1 for Eoghan to say that Eoghan should be included in the debates. Indeed, at least one of the other candidates has already supported us, Daniel Ennis, in doing that, and we're hopeful that other candidates will be supporting the call on RTE to allow Eoghan's voice to be heard in the debates.
Thanks, Paul. Now, just to remind people, there is plenty of time after this for questions and answers, so I would plead to people not to put in with questions, just to wait till call it. Look, this is a great guy, he really is, and a great candidate, and many of people from other parties have said this to me. He's a really good candidate. He's also launching an album of his traditional music, I think tomorrow, is it? And this is his launch for his election publicity, and Paul has gone into the details of that. So we do want to push this petition and to ensure that RTE are put under pressure on the question of this form of discrimination. It's not the first time it's happened to people before profit, but it's certainly really lousy that they're doing it on this occasion. proud to be supporting you here today, Eoghan. So there you are. Give it thanks.
Thanks very much, Breed. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just like to, say, I mean, the reason we have this panel of people and the reason we have somebody like Farah on our panel here is to represent the activists that we have in People Before Profit, and to represent the fact that we are an activist party, that there's one person who has their name on the poster, their face on the poster, but really there's, like, we have so many people, there's been around 100 people involved out with us, canvassing. Our branch in the city centre has been active. Different people in the branch, including Farah, have done Trojan work on the council rents campaign, on different campaigns, in the inner city. And obviously I'm the face of it, but we are very much a team, and this is why we want to represent all of that. So, look, I am standing in this election because I think people are sick and tired of the failed politics of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. I think people are really put to the pin of their collar, struggling with a cost of living crisis, with a housing crisis, and this government is not working for the many, they're working for the few. The system is working, but it's working for billionaires, corporations, people who are doing very well out of the various crises that we're facing. I'm a renter myself. I'm kind of one of the kind of generation that I don't know if I'll ever be able to kind of own a home or anything like that. I'm a member of CATU, the tenants union, and also United Against Racism. I think that we need to build a politics of unity that opposes racism and tries to unite working class people against the real enemy, the representatives of the landlords, big business interests. And I think when it comes to housing, so Breed and Paul mentioned the council rent increase that was imposed by Dublin City Council there last year. I was watching the debate on the weekend in politics on Sunday. Ray McAdam from Fine Gael said that there was no vote on this rent increase by Dublin City Council. This is completely false. People Before Profit had an amendment to the budget which would have said, yes, we need money for maintenance, we need to raise money for maintenance. That's absolutely true. The way we should do it, rather than punishing some of the people who are most struggling in this area, the way we should raise the money is from raising rates on the top 2.5% of businesses. Now that was voted down by one vote at Dublin City Council and passed. And the result of that, we are now seeing tenants we've met so many tenants who are seeing increases of 50, 60, 70 euro a week, and particularly people who have adult children, for want of a better term, stuck at home. They can't move out because of the housing crisis this government has created, and now they're being punished basically for their inability to move out by their income being assessed as well. So those people in particular are seeing massive increases, and people are really struggling, and this is on top of a cost of living crisis. So far beyond this by-election, we're going to continue this campaign. We want to work with the likes of CATU, the tenants union, and with tenants in the inner city to build a fight back, to have these rent increases reversed. On top of that, I want to talk about renting outside of social housing, because the rents that we're seeing are absolutely through the roof, and people simply can't afford to pay them. And we see that in the increase every single time that we have new figures coming out on homelessness. Now we're setting new records. So 5,500 children, 17,000 people homeless, and a tenth of those are in Gardner Street in Dublin Central constituency. So what do we need to do to fix it? We think that we should have a ban on evictions. We should have a ban on vulture funds in the market. A few years ago we had a bill to have rent controls that would be tied to the average income of an area. So that would mean that we would see rent reductions, not just a freeze on rents, but a reduction in rents for people, and then a use it or lose it policy for long-term vacant and derelict housing. And then the big issue, then the big key thing that we need. It's what Fianna Fáil did actually in the 1930s and 40s, is to build social and affordable housing at scale, and to do that we need a state construction company. We've had this policy for a few years, and now I'm happy to see that there's other parties on the left who are actually taking that up as as a policy of their own. A state construction company would build housing without the need for profit, basically, and would be able to build it at scale on public land. And this would have a knock-on effect then on private rents and also private housing, on people's ability to buy, for people who want to be able to buy. So these are kind of key things, I think, that we need when it comes to energy. Then we need the kind of, in the short term, we're talking about we need a €500 energy credit for people. We need price caps, and we also need to move toward. We need free public transport, free frequent public transport. Ultimately, as well, we think we need to nationalise the energy sector. So we used to have the cheapest electricity in Europe since privatisation and the ESB becoming a for-profit model as well. We now have some of the most expensive electricity in Europe, and also we're not developing our own renewable energy. The French state company is investing now in Irish wind. We don't have our own state company to properly invest in renewable energy at scale and not have it privatised. So so these are the kinds of measures that we want to see. And I'll just maybe make one final point, I suppose, is that none of this is achievable in coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. We've seen from the bitter experience of the Labour Party and the Green Party twice, and also now the kind of motley crew of independents that are propping up Fianna Fáil at the moment and Fine Gael at the moment, that if you go into coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, you just get more of the same. So we are the only party to rule out coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, and we think the higher my number one vote is in this election, the stronger a message it sends to the other left parties to rule out coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, and to say that we should come together before the next general election, and we should have 5 key issues that we agree on, including no coalition, that we say, then have a pact for vote left and transfer left on that basis. We sought a pact. We're still calling for vote left, transfer left in this election. We wanted a firmer pact where we had some common points of agreement, like defence of the triple lock, for example, like getting rid of the council rent hikes, like obviously no coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. We haven't got that from the other parties. We still want people to vote left and transfer left, but we think that was a missed opportunity in this by-election, and we would like to see it in the next general election. I think it would energise people that there would be a real alternative to Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael on the cards going into the next general election.
Good stuff, Owen. I think you covered everything there, but there may be a few questions, and now's your opportunity to ask them.
Can I ask? Oh, sorry.
No, you're first. That's right.
Can I ask about Jerry Hutch's comments with Somalis?
Yeah.
Breed, I think, didn't directly refer to it as racism, but I think that's what you were making reference to in your opening remarks.
Yeah.
Do you think that they're racist comments? Do you think Jerry Hutch is racist?
I think those are absolutely racist comments to say. He said that illegal immigrants should be interned. Yeah, I think this is absolutely racist. Yeah, and I think Jerry Hutch is trying to basically pander to a kind of a sentiment that is around, but actually that I don't think is the overwhelming sentiment of people in the inner city. Actually, like when we're talking to people in the inner city now, they're primarily worried about the rent increases that the Dublin City Council has imposed on them. We've been organising alongside those people. People are very clear about where we stand on we're an anti-racist party, that we don't stand for this kind of division. They're very happy to work with us on the council rents, and I think this is this is basically a way of dividing people, and it's something that we should be absolutely opposed to. But I wouldn't have confined this to Jerry Hutch, because we also see similar rhetoric from the government now linking homelessness to immigration. When they have created this housing crisis, they basically served the interest of corporate landlords, vulture funds for years, for decades, and now they're trying to turn around and say that immigration is the problem, and we should absolutely stand up against that. I think one of the things that I've been kind of fighting for is like the way that asylum seekers have been treated over the last number of years. We've had asylum seekers in tents by this government and by the previous government, by the way. Fine Gael and the Greens in government put hundreds of asylum seekers on the street, open, vulnerable to attack from people, and they were attacked on many occasions, and sometimes we were trying to organise alongside people to defend those people, and really this kind of rhetoric from Hutch, but also from others, actually opens up this kind of space for people to be attacked, and I think we need to absolutely oppose it and actually try to unite people on the basis of a fight on housing and a fight on cost of living.
Sorry, hold on there a second.
Is he a racist?
Is he a racist?
You said they're racist comments that make him racist.
Is he a racist? I don't know.
He's absolutely racist.
I mean, what he said is racist. Yeah, what he said is racist. Yeah.
Sorry, will you go through the chair, please? Just for once, will you try and go through the chair? Right. Now, because I didn't necessarily call you next, but you are next as it happens. But please go through the chair.
Yes, beg your pardon, Chair. Eoghan, would you call on Ray McAdam, the Fine Gael candidate, to repudiate the government's actions, just in furtherance of what you're saying just there, in relation to the punishment of Ukrainians and also Irish host families who are certainly going to see all their support stripped away very rapidly in coming months? And how big is the issue of migration and coupled with housing within Dublin Central itself?
Yeah, well, I think what the government is doing is now we saw with the invasion of Ukraine that the government showed that they actually can welcome refugees when they consider them to be the right ones, and when it's politically expedient, when there's a war that they're trying to get us to support in Ukraine, and they were trying to get us to send arms in. We said we should absolutely welcome Ukrainian refugees. We should treat them right, and we also should treat all refugees, welcome them into. And support them. And so now, basically, the government is kind of stripping away those supports. And I think what's happening is a kind of a very dangerous game by the government, where they are really putting the boot into everybody. They're putting the boot into council tenants, into renters, into asylum seekers, into refugees, and then they're trying to get us to squabble and fight among ourselves.
Sorry.
The question to the chair was: is that a form? Is that government policy a form of soft racism in your view? And would you call on Ray McAdam to repudiate it?
Yeah, well, I would go further than. I think Ukrainian refugees should be supported. I think the government's policies in general in relation to refugees, and let's not forget, their treatment of asylum seekers who are not Ukrainian has been far worse and far more racist. The IPAS system, the migration pact that they've signed up to, that the EU is pushing now, is absolutely. They're basically talking about creating. They're agreeing to things like deportation hubs, and basically detention for asylum seekers. I know somebody who. I'm trying to remember details here of policies that I've looked at, but basically what we're signing up to, and what we signed up to at the Migration Pact, is completely trampling on the rights of asylum seekers and refugees, and it is racist. Yeah, I think, should Ray McAdam repudiate it? I think he shouldn't. He shouldn't stand for Fine Gael. I think it would be good if he repudiated it, but what difference would it make if he repudiates it or not? Because ultimately he's supporting a government that's implementing these policies.
You're next. Sorry, I forget your name. Paul.
Sorry. You took, I suppose you mentioned the Green Party experience in the government, Labour experience in government. You said you're still looking for that left-wing transfer back. Who is on the left for you guys? Who qualifies? And then secondly, the RTE debate. How big an impact does that have on your campaigning plan being locked out? Yeah. How hard is it to replicate that through knocking on doors or social media? Is it just a lot easier to be on TV?
Yeah. Well, look, I think we have been working with others on the left. We have our differences, obviously, with all the parties on the left. We work in particular. I've mentioned the council rent so much because I think it's a key issue, and we've been working with Sinn Féin and Social Democrats in that. Unfortunately, Labour and the Greens are in the ruling group in Dublin City Council and have voted for those rents. And interestingly enough, the debate last Sunday, Ruth O'Dea seemed to want to distance herself from the Labour Party vote, which, you know, it would be good if the Labour Party in the council committed to reversing their decision. So yeah, look, I think there's a broad left, and then there's I think that we will work with on different campaigns. We have worked with there's an equality in education campaign, for example, that has had basically all the parties that have supported Catherine Connolly in it. I've been part of that as well. But obviously we have our differences with those as well. What we would like to see is a commitment, like obviously in the general election at this point, but a commitment on key issues like neutrality, like anti-racism, like opposing the council rents, and coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, basically where we could go into that, and that would energise people, and we would kind of have a transfer pact on that base. The question on how much the debate impacts. It's hard to say. I mean, our campaign has been really, really solid. I think we've covered a huge amount of ground. It's had a huge amount of energy about it. We've been getting a huge amount of a really good positive response on the doors. But the debates do make a difference. There's no doubt about that, because it's where you can, I would love the opportunity to go up against Ray McAdam or John Stevens, for example. I mean, I'll give you an example. Ray McAdam and the Week in Politics debate, he keeps bringing up the idea of you have 3 opposition TDs and 1 government TD, and you want to keep a government TD in this constituency. And one of the campaigns I've been involved in was to save the complex, which is gone now, and that was a multidisciplinary venue. Musicians, artists, they needed 6 million from the government. They had a government TD. My understanding from the people in the complex is that Pascal Donoghue promised them, the government TD promised them, that he would do everything, that he would provide this funding, he'd make sure that they would get the funding. Then he went and he got a job with the World Bank, and Ray McAdam I met before Christmas when the campaign was on. I happened to be at an event that he was at, and I told him, what are you going to do about the complex? He looked me in the eye and he said, we have to save the complex. We're going to do everything we can. And then nothing happened. Meanwhile, then, Jack Chambers, another Fianna Fáil minister, was also asked to do something about this and did absolutely nothing. And I see Johnson, the Fianna Fáil candidate, now doing videos outside the complex saying how we need to save it. So what the hell use is another government TD going to do in Dublin Central? Not very much. And this is precisely why I'd like to be on the debates, to be able to hold them to account on these things.
Good on you. Yourself?
Just on the issue of the RTA, the broadcast group published its policy before the campaign got underway. Included in that policy are statements from 2 High Court judges making judgments on this very issue.
Yeah.
So it's not as if this issue caught people who were caught off guard in a way. I'm just curious around the argument that you have that you should be on there, considering it has kind of stood up in court before that RTE has a right, and that is what a High Court judge said, that RTE has a right to implement its own policies.
I mean, just say it didn't catch us off guard. I mean, we were engaged in correspondence repeatedly with RTE, where we've been seeking for a long time to get clarity on. They sent us this criteria, which is based on these various court rulings. This is like a well-litigated area. And we said, fine, okay, well, what does this mean in terms of the debates? We were trying to have a meeting with them last week. We found out that we were excluded from the Week in Politics programme, the debate, just by virtue of the researcher getting on to organise the piece to camera, i.e. you're not on the debate. So we had been, Des, our press person, has been back and forth with them for a long time, seeking what debates are you going to have, who will be included, and so on. So then we found out that we're excluded from the Week in Politics debate, not through that correspondence, but instead through the Week in Politics contacting us to arrange an interview. We then seek an urgent meeting with RTE last week. They suggest that it'd be better to do it this week. And then on Friday we get sent to us the full list, the decision that has been made, the 3 debates, this is who's on them, and we're not on them. So we were aware that this was a potential issue. I have to say, we thought we might be fighting RTE about getting on 2 debates rather than being on 1 debate. We did not expect to be excluded from all the debates. Because kind of no matter how you slice it, it's very clear. You go through the general election results or look at the local election results where Eoghan outperformed in first preference votes many of those people who are included in the debates and came extremely close to winning a seat in the North inner city. It's like almost impossible to come up with a scenario whereby Eoghan is the one person who is excluded, and yet that is precisely what they've done. We're continuing to discuss with the lawyers and taking advice, but again, we hope not to have to go to court. We hope that RTE will respond to the public pressure, will respond to the appeals from other candidates, will see sense and see it's in the interest of the public to be able to see hear the different views on display. The other point I'd make about the importance of the debates.
If it's a flat no, if they say no, we'll go to court.
We need to consider our legal options and consider. We haven't made a decision either way.
Just to say, just on the so the way the criteria is based. So I'll just explain it a little bit in more detail. If you go by first preference vote, we were ahead of some of the candidates in the local elections. Now, obviously, those parties ran multiple candidates. We ran one, so RTE could easily say, okay, that's they're ahead of you if you combine their party vote. But then you're saying, okay, well, you're looking at it not actually on first preference, you're looking at it on your final vote. Now, our final vote in the general election, we finished 1 vote behind the Green Party. 1 single vote. And we decided not to go for a recount because we figured we're not going to get, this is going to annoy people. Like, we'll go another step. We might get ahead of, if we beat Nassau Organ, the Green Party, we might have beat Malachy Steenson and then probably would have been out at that point. But that's as close as we if we were another vote ahead, we would have got, we would have been maybe next out, behind Jay Hutch and the Labour Party, basically. So I think that kind of shows you that general election performance, that we are absolutely, I'm a viable candidate. I'm absolutely in the hunt with those other parties, and we'll probably finish ahead of some of the parties that do get a debate.
Fair enough. It's just you couldn't say the impact that this decision has actually had on the campaign. I guess I put it to you, is this in one way just some sort of stunt to try and gain some coverage of the campaign itself? You said anyway that the campaign is going positively and you're getting a good response. So if you're included on the stage or not, what impact is that actually?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I've seen Richard perform on debates, and our vote jumped several percent, across the country in a general election, and in a by-election that could be a big factor, I think it could make a big difference. It is going well, but obviously if we could go, and the other thing is, if you're not included in the debates, it creates an impression in the public's mind that you're not really a serious contender. We actually believe we are. We're up there with the 8 other candidates that actually are getting a debate.
Is that not up to you to prove it though?
Well, it's chicken and egg then. If you I think we will prove it. I think we will beat at least some of the candidates that are on the debate. We'll see. I mean, we also will suffer from not being on a debate. So we'll see what happens.
What's the one reason people should vote for yourself and for PBP in Dublin Central?
Yeah. Can I give 2?
You won't.
Okay. 2 reasons. I'm a campaigner. People Before Profit, we're a team, we're a party of activists. We think the change comes from below, from grassroots organising, from organising in workplaces, from organising in communities. This is my record on the cobblestone. This is my record in terms of fighting for housing, going back as far as things like Take Back the City. This is my record in terms of fighting against racism. Organising communities together and from the ground up, and this is where we think change comes from. So examples being, we've seen from repeal, we've seen from the water charges. It's mass movements that actually change society, and we will use whatever platform we have. Getting a TD seat would give us a massive platform to be able to continue doing that work. The second reason is we want a left government. We want a government without Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. And we need left parties to rule out coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael to create the energy for a real alternative that energises people in the next general election. So a number one vote for me sends the strongest possible message to the other left parties to rule out coalition.
Okay, Jack.
On the vote left, transfer left thing, in Galway West, the PPP candidate has effectively called on the Green Party to sack its candidate and to replace him because he has shares in Cisco. You're going to be asking for green transfers. Do you think that kerfuffle in Galway West is going to hurt your chances of getting transfers from Green voters in Dublin Central?
I don't think so.
Do you want to come in with that?
I don't. You said you saw a formal pact.
Company.
Yeah, I mean, we wrote, and we published the letter, we wrote to all the other parties that had been part of the Connolly coalition in February, seeking a formal pact based on certain common principles and with a clear understanding that, okay, these parties have signed up to the pact and we will have some common projection in the course of the election. So that hasn't come to pass. We're disappointed.
Excuse me? Did anyone agree to that?
Not formally, anyway. I mean, there was various informal discussions that I kind of am free to go into, and things were explored, and we tried to get it to a point of a formal pact. We didn't get there, and that's disappointing for us. I think it is a missed opportunity. But I would say, much better than nothing, all the candidates are saying vote left, transfer left. We prefer that to be based on an organised pact and an organised projection of clear principles, but it is better that they're saying vote left, transfer left, which we've been saying for many general elections. That is a step forward and hopefully will be seen in terms of the rate of transfer. And I think it is likely that a left candidate wins in Dublin Central. In Galway West, I think the big question is whether it's going to be the Independent Ireland candidate or whichever candidate of the left comes out on top. And obviously the rate of transfer between left candidates is going to be absolutely crucial there. So we think it's in the interest of all of the left parties to go as far as they can in terms of
just
transfers.
On the point, Owen, where do you're going to vote for yourself, obviously. Where do your second, third and fourth preferences come?
I haven't decided completely, but I will make a distinction. I'll vote broadly on the left, and I'll make a distinction between parties that voted on against the council rent increases in Dublin City Council and parties that voted for it.
And who won't you give your preference to?
Basically beyond the Connolly supporting. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how far I'll go, to be honest.
Jerry Hutch.
Jerry Hutch.
After yesterday.
you all want to ask questions about. Everyone loves asking questions about Jerry Hutch. No, I don't think I'll be giving Jerry Hutch a preference, or Fianna Fáil, or Malik Hussein.
Any more questions, guys? No.
I think I wouldn't vote for a landlord, and purely for that reason alone. You can rule out Jerry Hutch for me. I think he hasn't declared his